And hey, Carl,
Hi.
I see a doggy behind you. I can hear you just fine now. I didn't know you had a doggy. That's awesome.
I don't have a dog.
Oh, is that a cat?
Yeah, that's a kitten.
Oh, it's a kitten. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, jealous. I love kittens. All right, quick comments here. We're just saying hey to Carla, Katie girl. I got some chat rules in here. Everyone be nice to each other, which you usually are. JPJ is in the house, the dance spirit. Oh, Judy, the YouTube lawyer at AA Legal Focus. Hello. Maya's been waiting for this. And she said, Maya, Carl, she said that she was listening to all your old live streams today. Society page, hello, the talented one and only society page. So good to see you all. Okay, hey Debbie, and hey Munira, and hey tennis girl. And if I keep going, we'll never get started. So let's get started. Carl is a busy man. He has 45 minutes. We have a 45-minute outline tonight, and then we're going to do questions. Hopefully at the end, a few questions that were submitted. So keep them rolling in because Carl is going to be monitoring the questions, and she's going to pop on with us to unload those questions on Carl. So you're going to bring the kitty up to the camera a little closer, or is she just playing out there, not wanting to?
Yeah, she's playing with something over there in the corner.
Yeah, my cat is doing the same, and sometimes she usually does make an appearance. So just wait for that, everyone. Okay, so thank you, Carl, for joining me on my channel tonight. I'm super excited that you're here. Carl and I have been talking about what to talk to you about because there's so much cover of the Dan Markel case. So we narrowed it down to 3 big lies, question mark, are they lies or not? And what might that mean that Wendy made on the stand? And so I'm going to show, we're going to review some of the clips. Okay. And then we're going to talk to Carl about what his thoughts are. And again, there are 3. So let me whip through this slideshow here real quick. And here's my cat. You're going to miss my cat. We're going to talk about the crime scene visit, her statement about unfettered access for her parents to the children, which I think is very interesting. The grandparent visits, double life of cheating on Jeff Lacasse and perhaps others, and the weird relationship she had with Jeff Lacasse. And so we're going to talk about whether it's a truth or a lie or possibly a misunderstanding, which would go to what Wendy's intent might have been. And we definitely want to hear what you think in the chat too, but we're going to see what attorney Steinbeck has to say about this. And I'm asking the question, why would lying about this particular thing be so important to the defendant? Now, Wendy isn't the defendant. So also, why would it be important to Wendy? Is she trying to say things to protect her for a potential future accusation or arrest? So how is the lie directly refutable, which is really important? And then how is this material to the trial that she was in testifying in? Because I feel like a lot of things she was asked about really didn't matter. It wasn't material to to Charlie's or Katie's and Sigfredo's question of guilt or innocence. So that's kind of interesting. And then what the consequences might be for any particular life that she might have made. So are we ready to roll? So, and then I have a little outline here. I'm not going to share that too much, but that's to keep me.
Did you go to the crime scene?
That's to keep me on track. Carl, are you ready to roll?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Or very near the crime scene on your way from your residence to, I guess, to lunch or to wherever you were going next?
No, I did not.
Did you go to the crime scene or very near the crime scene on your way from your residence to, I guess, to lunch or to wherever you were going next?
So I just thought it was interesting. I don't know if you guys caught it because the camera wasn't on her, but she was saying no before Georgia even finished her question. I don't know if you heard that or not, but it seemed very important to her. What do you think? Why is this so important, the crime scene, Carl?
Well, it comes down to human nature and timing. And what are the odds she would have been driving by there so shortly after the time that Dan got gunned down in his garage.
Okay.
So it really begs the question, why would you go over there of all times you could go? How many times have you been buying there 365 days of the last year, and you happen to pick this time where you almost were like going to be the first one on the scene?
Wow.
And
Yeah.
some folks even think that was part of the plans for her to be the first one on the scene and call 911. So we don't know the specifics on that, but just the fact that she went there, that's the top two single most damning things against her that incriminate her.
Right. And even though it doesn't really like put the gun in her hand or anything like that, but it incriminates her in terms of she knew this was happening, right? She was fully aware.
Yes, shows the
'Cause-
consciousness, being part of the planning party. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, let me ask you a quick question. So let's say we're not in this case, but let's just say we're in another case. Somebody gets shot. And the reason okay, let me just give you some background. I'm asking this question like this. I hear all the time that when it's not uncommon for a murderer to visit a crime scene for some reason, gratification or something like that. Is that also part of this, do you think?
Well, if it wasn't for the fact that the plan was for her to be the first person on the scene, then yes, she was there to inspect what was going on at the crime scene. So the curiosity just she couldn't resist to go over there. Keep in mind they botched it the early June trip up. The hitmen did, and she probably had more skepticism and lack of faith that Charlie could get this bumbling crew up there to actually do the job the right way. And so that's
Right.
why if she wasn't there to actually confirm it, I think she was there to maybe just to confirm the opposite, that it hadn't happened yet, and just to tell Charlie that these guys can't get the job done, and you're ruining my life, kind of thing.
And it's just so ghoulish. I mean, to think about it, really. Ugh. Okay, very good. And by the way, I just spotted your brother right behind Georgia in this scene. That's the great John Steinbeck, who has the same name as a great author. Okay, so what we're going to do next, real briefly, is we're going to review the 4 different times that Wendy was asked about this, first in her police interview and then the 3 trials. So it's going to take a couple minutes, but we just want to note what she said, because they were all 3 different trials. But what's really interesting is what she says compared to the time before. All right, so let's roll. I'm just going to give you a quick brief. I forgot I did this slide. So she says some really interesting things. For one thing, in 2014, watch for her to say, I did it. I do it. In other words, I go down Trescott Lane as a habit, as a way of coming to terms with the divorce, which is particularly galling to me. In 2019, she said, I did not visit the crime scene. 2022, did you go by the crime scene? No. 2023, did you go to the crime scene or very near the crime scene on your way? No, I did not. And I think she's going to get into an argument, honestly, about semantics. She went there, but she didn't know it was a crime scene or something silly like that. Okay, so let's go.
Working for an hour or so from the house. I was going to take a shower, but I didn't. I ran out of time. I did laundry. And then I left the house around noon.
To go to the liquor store and the stuff for the party?
Yeah.
Okay, you went down which road you said?
I went down Trescott.
Okay.
I saw a police car there, and I just thought it was blocked, so I just turned around and drove to, I went down the rest of Centerville, went up Benton, took Benton across, went to ABC Liquors, bought the bourbon.
I'm a little confused. You're up on Centerville Road. What's your purpose of driving down Trescott?
It's usually the shortcut to get to Monroe.
To get to Monroe?
I usually take it as a cut through to get to Thomasville or Monroe.
Okay, all right, so
I don't know why I said Monroe. I was thinking Mosaic, Monroe, Thomasville.
Okay, so when you come down into town on Centerville?
I almost always cut through Trescott.
Trescott and just drive by your old house?
Well, I do it as a way of like coming to terms with the divorce. But yeah, sometimes I drive there. If I'm too sad, I drive around.
Okay.
If the kids aren't home and I know they're not home, I feel better about driving by the house. But yeah, it's shorter and I just usually drive by.
It's shorter than going all the way down to Benton?
All the way down Centerville and around Benton. It's just a shortcut I always took.
Okay, so you turned around and went back to Centerville, I take it?
Yeah.
Down to Benton? and went to the liquor store down there on Thomasville,
Yeah.
the one at Benton Road?
ABC Liquors, it's at, yeah, Benton.
Okay. All right. Did you make a purchase there?
Yeah,
And that was sometime after 12?
probably 12:30.
Okay. All right.
And I talked to a guy there because I don't really buy much alcohol, and so they wanted bourbon, and I asked the guy, we had a whole conversation about bourbon and
Right.
my eyes, like,
Your eyes?
he just said your eyes are really blue and
Do you have contacts?
it's working.
Oops. So on, I left a little bit more in there because Carl, I just feel like there's just so much in here. First of all, she sounds like she's laugh crying. She doesn't really, the cry sounded so fake, but this business about her constantly having to mention that she's not familiar with alcohol. She doesn't buy much alcohol. It comes up all the time in every trial so far. It was just implausible. And then it seemed like, because Detective Isom actually challenged her 3 times in this interview, not harshly in any way, but that's a shortcut, and you did what? And so I feel like she went to this, I do that as a way to come to terms with the divorce, because she was getting challenged and it felt like it was prepared. So do you want to comment on each of the 4, or should we just roll through each
Well,
one?
I can just say something here.
Okay.
The thing about coming to terms with the divorce, I mean, that is just so
Ugh.
far out there and a
Awful.
preposterous statement for her to make, because if you notice what she said earlier in other statements, she didn't ever love Dan. So if you don't love Dan, why would you have to come to terms with a divorce where you weren't broken and sick about the loss of somebody you previously loved and bore 2 children with? So
Yeah.
that really right there drives home the stake that she's lying about that being a reason why she's driving down there. And I think if you reflect back, that even Georgia had said that she tried to frame Jeff in her closing statements against Charlie. If the frame job was going on for 8 months, and keep in mind that Jeff Lacasse has said she did take that road a few times. So why would she take that road a few times if it wasn't a shortcut? Because we all know it's not a shortcut. I've driven down Trescott as well. It is so far beyond belief to have anyone say that's a shortcut. So it's a strategic thing to do by bringing Jeff down there. That's what I'd be arguing if I was a prosecutor.
Oh,
And this was
okay.
so well orchestrated and so well
Yeah, right.
detailed. All these details were planned out. And then also just keep in mind on the thing about liars is that they wind up giving too much information, right?
Right.
Here
They keep
she's
talking.
trying to come to terms with the fact that her children's father is going to die moments away from dying. And you're thinking about mentioning your blue eye contacts, and that the guy at ABC mentioned that sounds like something that a guilty mind is trying to come up with details. So guilty minds, conscious of guilt, comes up with all
Right.
these little rabbit trails that they try to throw the listener off on. And she's doing all these classic data points of lying that somebody has repeatedly done throughout this whole trial and all the other trials as well. So she has an ongoing pattern, and it's really not even, she's not even a good liar. That's what I've been saying all along, is that the lies she tells, that they're just so far out there. Her body, everything that you look at, and when somebody's lying, whether it's a body language, the eye fluttering, the eye squeezing, all those kind of things. And and just her tone of voice and whatnot, and also her laughs. And so her whole demeanor, even here at this initial interview, her whole demeanor is not even appropriate. And she never once says, up until like 20 minutes into the interview, anything about her boys. What they'll have is a loss for their dad and how devastated they'll be.
Exactly.
I think most mothers be saying, "Oh, my poor boys." I don't care how much you can't stand the boy's father. You're going to right away blurt out something about the boys. And for her not doing that, it just shows that, this thing was sort of planned out, and there was no heart in it. There was no heart in the emotion. And also covering your eyes like that, Dawn.
Yes.
I mean, that's a classic sign.
Yes,
I see that a lot of times.
Mhm.
Women so more than men, but they cover up their eyes when they're trying to force fake a cry, some tears, So That's what I also picked up on as well.
Okay. Okay. And I do appreciate, we're going to see that in the next ones where Georgia in 2023 actually challenged her on, you didn't even ask about the kids. And I want to point out her answer then. So let's go to 2019. So the first time she spoke to anyone was 2014, the day of Dan Markels' shooting. And then it wasn't until 2019, because she didn't cooperate and make any other statements, that she was, I think she pled the fifth on all of the depositions for Katie, but it was 5 years that she had to prepare. So let's hear what she says.
Okay. And did you make any stops between leaving your residence and going to the liquor store?
Maybe I purchased gas?
I don't know if you did or not, but I'm referring to your visit to the crime scene.
I did not visit the crime scene.
You did not pull up to the crime scene tape on Truscott Drive?
No. I was driving on Centerville Road, and sometimes I would take the shortcut through Truscott.
Yes, ma'am.
But when I was driving on Centerville Road, I saw some sort of tape or obstruction, and so I didn't turn.
Okay.
Okay. So I think Georgia was a little taken back because there was a bit of a pause when she said you didn't, because Georgia hadn't been able to, get any information from her since 2014. I think she was taken aback a little bit with her lie that time. And of course, Wendy and none of her family members were on trial. Carl. So why would Georgia challenge her at this point, right? Or could she have? Or what would be the benefit?
Well, yeah, she didn't go after her hard the first couple trials that she testified at, and she would only go like one deep normally on a question. I think she went a couple more deep, like when she said she didn't know how to spell gibbers, and then Georgia brought it up. That was actually saved in her phone. Number of saved as gibbers. So, but for the most part, yeah, she didn't really tear into her and rip into her like she did this last trial. And so this last trial, she had a much more aggressive posture. And she was really out to prove her as a liar. It wasn't just her demeanor and the way she came across as being part of this planning, but she really went after her and went over some of these lies that we're talking about tonight.
Right. Okay. Well, and I feel like I as a potential juror, I don't have any legal or behavioral science background, but I just feel like each time that another trial happens, Georgia's going to ramp it up. And Wendy will melt down on the stand if she even goes at her a little harder. I think Wendy looked pretty scared this last time around. So
yeah, the thing is, Dawn, I said the first two trials she walked out of there feeling like she got over on Georgia. This last time, Georgia got her, and she knew it walking out of there.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm glad that you're confirming that too. All right, so let's go up to 2022. It's a whole 3 more years before and this again is in Katie's, because Katie had a mistrial, so she was retried.
On the way to run your errands, did you go by the crime scene?
No.
On the way to run your errands, did you encounter a roadblock on Truscott?
I did.
All right, so you did turn off of Centerville onto Truscott.
I did.
All right, and when you encountered a roadblock, what did you assume the problem was there?
I figured it was just an electrical storm or something. There was some tape, and it looked like the road was blocked off. And so I just turned around and went back and went up Benton.
And had there been an electrical storm that morning?
I didn't remember an electrical storm, but in the summertime, there's always trees falling and rainstorms, so pretty normal.
Right, and you weren't concerned based on that experience that there could be something going on at previously your marital home?
Absolutely not.
And your ex-husband, Dan Markel, had your children at that time, right?
No, he did not.
So here, if it were me, I would have said no, but in hindsight, I wish I had no idea. It just, there's nothing, like you said, Carl, for thinking, you're getting me thinking differently now. She would have said something like, wouldn't it be awful if she wasn't involved and she saw that and all she did was write on, or maybe it was one of her children or something like that got hurt. So, gosh, yeah.
You don't have crime scene tape for a fallen tree, and you don't have you don't have crime scene evidence vans and numerous squad cars and no service trucks to recover down trees and branches and all that kind of stuff. So what she's saying is so preposterous, and
Totally.
any
Yeah.
jury, any jury would see right through it. And that's why the juries have thought that she's a part of it as well, the first two. And I'm sure this last one will definitely say the same thing.
Yeah. She's skating on thin ice. Okay. And so now we're going to get to the most recent one now.
All right, so what time did you leave the house to go have lunch?
I really didn't remember offhand, but I refreshed my memory and saw it was sometime around 12:45.
Okay, so it makes sense that you might have left your residence at about 12:30.
Sure.
Okay, and did you go to the crime scene or very near the crime scene on your way from your residence to?
She said no. Did you hear that?
Lunch or to wherever you were going next?
No, I did not.
So you never turned on Trescott Drive that day?
I went to turn on Trescott Drive, but I saw that it had been blocked off by some tape. And so I just kept driving on Centerville.
Okay, and when
I'm just going to pause right there. First of all, as you mentioned, it would have said crime scene, right? Because it was the police. It wouldn't have just been some random tape that some tree service put up because they were trimming trees or whatever. Okay, for the trees that are falling out of the sky.
Yeah, and they don't put up tape; they just put up cones, right? Have you ever seen crime
Right,
scene
exactly.
tree service guys?
Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. And the other thing that she's trying to hone in on is, and I don't know, but you went there and all credit to the society page and Gibber's page for what we're going to see next. But she would have had to turn all the way on to Trescott. She was on Trescott, not Centerville. She's saying I was on Centerville and I was trying to turn, but it was like the whole street was blocked off. But that wasn't the case. It was just those houses with Dan's house in the center. Is that right?
Yeah, the crime scene tape was actually on it's like a telephone pole just a few feet away from his mailbox, which is further away from what would be Wendy's van. And so her van would have came up within approximately like one house distance from Dan's house. So it would have been you're talking about probably 40 feet or something like that from the crime scene tape.
Okay. And I guess there's some question about whether, I guess that's why I asked it, was it crime scene tape? What is crime scene tape? It's that bright yellow stuff, right? I mean, I haven't seen crime scene. I've never seen a crime scene. So it's like that bright yellow. I mean, if I saw bright yellow tape, I would immediately think the police were there, right?
Yeah, you'd be startled.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
I mean, if they put crime scene tape there, that means they're bringing out the forensic crime scene processing team. And so for them to do that, you're talking about a crime of violence, a horrific crime of violence. Okay. And it's either lethal or near lethal for them to do that.
Okay. And Phoebe Beach is saying it's yellow, bright yellow. It probably glows in the dark. I would guess it has some, in case it's nighttime, and it says do not cross or something like that. It might not say crime scene, but it would say do not cross or something. But I do believe there are photos.
It says crime scene, yeah. It's do not cross doesn't sound like it's law enforcement. So it's definitely, the tape is definitely such that you can tell it's law enforcement and nothing else.
Okay. All right, let's continue. Sorry, I had to interrupt there.
you had to turn around at the tape, right, to go back out?
I think I tried to turn right and it couldn't turn. So I would have made like the kind of turn, like a key turn, and kept going.
Was there a roadblock there
There was tape.
Yeah, and an officer was there?
I didn't see an officer, but I did see a car.
A law enforcement marked vehicle? Okay, did you have any contact with the officer?
No.
So right there was tape and a police car. So I guess that answers the question.
Right.
Did you do anything after that to try to find out what was going on down that roadway?
No, I just assumed it was weather or maybe a tree fell.
Had there been bad weather that day?
No, but it was summertime and there's electrical storms and trees fall. So that would have been pretty normal for summertime.
Where were your kids supposed to be at the time that you encountered that roadblock?
They would have been at school.
And that's at the creative preschool?
That's right.
Who took them to preschool that day?
Danny.
And who was supposed to pick them up from preschool that day?
Me.
All right. So did you know for sure that they had made it to preschool that day at the time you encountered the roadblock?
I just assumed, I mean, if they hadn't made it to preschool, Danny would have let me know, but
Did you attempt to call Dan Markel when you encountered the roadblock?
no, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't think it was related to the house.
Had you talked?
This I thought was, I'm just going to interrupt. Sorry. I caught it when I was doing this slideshow. She says, I didn't think it was related to the house. It was related to a murder. It was related to a shooting. You know what I'm saying? Even in 2023, she can't muster up enough to say, I had no idea Dan had been shot. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Related to the house. It wasn't related to the house, right?
Well, the squad cars are related to the house and the crime scene tape. You could tell it's definitely Dan's house that the
Boom.
police are there
Right.
for. So if
Right.
if she doesn't put two and two together to think, wait a minute, I don't know the kids made it to school,
Mhm.
to daycare, and Dan has not talked to me. So how do I know he's alive? Right? How do I know he's not the one injured or the kids are the one injured? So
Right.
that's the I call it 1A and 1B. Driving on Trescott, so close to the actual the firing of the pistols into Dan Markel's head is such a such a evil thing in and of itself. And you're going to be
Mhm.
going down the road there and just act like, oh, just here's some down trees and there's all these
Yeah.
squad cars of crime scene tape, and you're just going to hightail it out of there. So it just
Yeah.
and not knowing about your kids if they made it. So no mother, there's no mother in the world that would do something like that, especially somebody that has her education and experience. So it's
Mhm.
it's really shows consciousness of guilt, and that's what the prosecutor would argue
Yeah.
if and when she goes to trial.
Yeah, and even in 2023, there's no sadness about what really happened at that. I was so, that she was so close to that. There's no indication that she has a care in the world about it.
Did Dan
Yeah, so
Markel or your kids?
Oops, sorry.
I was just going to say one of the techniques I use when I know somebody's really hating on somebody and they don't want to admit it, I
Mhm.
make them say, especially like this in front of a jury, I make them talk about the good things about Dan Markel,
Mhm.
and
Right.
it just comes off so horrible for
Oh.
them. They cannot do it, and
Mhm.
they're just like that right there is like as good as any kind of question you could ask.
Yeah.
Just start going into questions like that. And so it
Yeah.
hasn't happened
Yeah.
in these trials, but in her trial, I think that'd be a great question to ask. But I don't think that's another discussion on whether she'd testify or not. So anyway, I'll leave it
Mhm.
at that.
Yeah. 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 Okay. All right. So let's just finish this clip real quick.
That morning?
My kids know, but that would have been normal. And Danny and I tried to get in touch with each other, but we left. We were trying to figure out where Ben was going to go to kindergarten at the time. And we left voicemails for each other, but didn't get to talk.
Okay. Did he leave you a voicemail message that morning?
He did.
Okay. I asked you earlier about him being scheduled to leave town the day after he was killed. Do you know where he was planning to go?
He was going to New York to see his girlfriend.
Boom.
All right.
Oops. He was going to New York to see his girlfriend. I feel for her. All right. So, any final thoughts before we move to the next point? And by the way, yeah, you are absolutely right. They cannot muster up one positive. She's still disparaging Dan she didn't this time, but up until last year, even on the stand, she still was disparaging Dan.
Yeah, in a number of different ways. A lot of them subtle too, but
Mhm, for
juries pick
sure.
up on that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. Shall we move to the next point?
Sure.
Okay. Let's see what I have next. Oh, by the way, yes. Let's just shout out. There's a really good video. Whoops, let me go back. Sorry, guys. I'm not used to this thing. There's a really good video, and I was using some of this to help me get through this about the crime scene. And so I took this slide from the society page, Hi, and the Gibbers, and they did a collaboration, did a great video on showing. There was a whole video I'm not going to show, but just I got this map there, and it really does show that this is not a shortcut, which obviously Detective Isom knew. And by a long shot, 9.6 miles, a 20-minute drive to Mosaic, which is fairly near where Dan lived, via ABC Liquor. So she had to go back. I see. So, and then I believe it was like a 10-minute drive the other way. I can't remember,
Yeah.
but
It's
it's like a
basically
third.
10 minutes versus 45.
Yes. Yes.
And then,
Crazy.
yeah, and then she still got to drive back home. So that's like an hour's worth of driving when you could just basically go 10 minutes there and 10 minutes back.
Right. Yeah. Which way did she go home? That'd be what I would ask. So when you left Mosaic to go home, which route did you take? Oh, you didn't.
Well-
you didn't. You were in the police department.
Yeah.
I forgot. Oh gosh. Okay. And this is another nice visual because it shows that she would have had to be actually on Trescott to see. Okay, let's say it's not crime scene tape. Let's say it's police activity. Whoopie ding. She knew something serious was going on that street. Okay. There's some people saying it didn't say crime scene or whatever. I just don't. She knew there was tape, some kind of tape in a police car. Something was happening very near to where her children spend half of their time and where her ex-husband lived. So you would think, and that's how close it was. That's kind of hard to see here, but the utility pole is where the tape was attached to.
And Dawn, to get there, she drove almost a mile there. It's like 9/10 of a mile.
To get to the house, right? Exactly, to the
Right.
tape. The tape.
Right.
She's making it out like there's a tape right at the end of the
Right.
street,
Right.
right? Yeah, and I hope Georgia really does like use this video from the society page or better visuals, and I think she will when it comes time for Wendy's trial. Okay, so point number 2. And then it's just the credits. So I got the interrogation. The police interview from mentor lawyer and the trials clips from Tallahassee Democrat and gibbers in the society page, as I previously
Did you
mentioned.
get any big gifts for his 70th?
I don't remember.
Did you?
And just to set this up, this is the unfettered access clip where she talks about unfettered access to the children by her parents, and then paella and other gifts. And I'm going to just call it unfettered paella.
So there was no big lead up and discussion about some big gift that you were involved in, at least.
I don't remember. I don't remember if I gave him a present. I hope I did.
Do you remember what anybody gave him for that birthday?
I really don't.
Was the murder of Dan Markel your dad's big gift?
I mean, that's, of course not. That's a horrible thing to say.
What about the grandchildren, getting full unfettered access to the grandchildren?
My
Could that
parents
have been
had
the
full
big gift?
unfettered access to their grandchildren always.
Not when they lived in Tallahassee.
Well, whenever they could come up and see them, they did.
They were 50% of the time with Dan Markel, right?
Sure, but whenever they were with me, they had full unfettered access.
On the occasion that we're talking about, Dad's birthday, was that one of the times that when you came back to Tallahassee, your parents rode with you and then rented a car and drove home in the rental car?
It was.
I'm going to pause right there. There's more that I saved this whole clip, but I don't want to get too far into because there's so many points I'm sure you want to make. So the unfettered access and then the whole paella. And I did love Georgia's response when she said, "Oh, what a horrible thing to say." And Georgia was like, "Well, we're here for a murder. Somebody, it's what happened." So what are your thoughts about the whole comment about unfettered access?
Well, I mean, obviously the access to the grandkids was a huge part of why Donna wanted the hit to go on Dan. And it also had to do with Wendy being trapped in Tallahassee. And so this was sort of like the scorched earth, eliminate anything having to do with Markel from the family. So whether it's the kid's last name, their middle name, and anything that involves Markels that are still alive ever since then, they want nothing to do with them. And so they've begrudgingly, given some limited access here and there. They took a state law to try to basically force their hand to get some limited visitation, but the kids really don't know any of the Markels up there in Canada. So it's just such a tragedy here that these boys have half their family tree just basically snuffed out of them.
Indeed. Okay. I'm going to play on because we're going to get a little bit more to that. Yes, and she's very detached.
And how long a drive is that?
It's about 7 hours.
During that 7-hour trip, or at any time when you were in South Florida, was there any discussion of a murder at all?
No, absolutely not.
Any discussion of what to do about Dan?
No.
Any further discussion about bribing, converting to Christianity, any of those strategies?
No, that ship had long sailed.
Any discussion on that trip about the pending motion to preclude your mom from having contact with the kids?
No.
What was wrong with the TV that was repaired the morning of the murder?
I think one of my boys might have thrown something at it. There was like a little crack in the TV.
How long had the TV been broken at the time that it got repaired?
I honestly don't remember.
Could it have been a long time, quite a long time?
No, it could have been. I mean, I would be completely speculating. I don't remember how long it was broken for.
Do you remember who repaired the TV?
Yes, it was called the Geek Squad.
Do you remember the window that the geeks?
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt here. When I was re-listening to this one to make the slideshow, I was like, it was called the Geek Squad. All she had to say is the geeks. Everybody knows what the Geek Squad is, so it just seemed so overly prepared. But I will say, I will give credit to Wendy for just sticking to yes or no. She wasn't interjecting as much chatter this time around. She was more prepared to answer and then step back like she should. Anything you want to add before I keep going?
No, I don't know where this was in this sequence of the questioning, but I think she realized that Georgia's really going after a lot more this time, and I think that might have shut her answers down to be shorter and less expansive.
Yeah, probably. This was the second time she came back.
Squad gave you for when they were going to be at your home to do this repair?
I do. I think they said it was 8 to 12 or 9 to 1, something like that.
Okay. Would you agree with me if I told you it was 8 to 12?
That sounds right.
All right. And do you recall what time the repairman actually arrived?
No, but I remember they came on the early side.
Okay. And was the repair done?
No,
Why not?
because I called my brother to find out how much a new TV would cost versus how much the repair cost, and it didn't make sense to repair it.
It's cheaper to buy a new TV.
Charlie didn't like that.
The records indicate the repairman was there for about 45 minutes. Does that sound accurate to you?
Sure, that's my best. Sure.
Why was he there for that long, just to tell you like this thing can't be repaired or it's cost prohibitive to repair? Do you remember?
I don't. My guess is he was there to try to see how he could repair the TV, and then he gave me an estimate, and then I found out what the estimate compared to the cost of the new TV would be.
Who paid the repairman?
I did.
The repairman, you're familiar with his statement that you seemed really upset that day. What were you upset about?
I have no idea.
She does pop back up and say, oh, I know I was upset right after this. And I think it's in another clip, but it's kind of crazy because it's like, oh, I know what I was supposed to say there. It came off really crazy. I shouldn't have cut it off here, but why is George asking her why the repairman was there for 45 minutes?
Well, this is part of her alibi. And if the guy shows up and says, look, this is, I can take this TV away and repair it. Or, I don't think they would have fixed it on the scene. But think about the lag time in getting parts for a TV. You'd be talking many, many weeks or a couple months for a repair to happen. You got young kids. It's in the room that you entertain them a lot and keep them occupied while you're doing dishes or whatever around the house. So to basically even have this issue come up to think about it getting repaired, even back in 2014, it's just really preposterous.
It is.
And so, but the 45 minutes really plays into why it also shows indicative of conscience of guilt as part of the planning, because why would you keep a guy there for 45 minutes unless you string him along to create more of an alibi? So what you didn't realize at the time is like, just letting him leave right away, that'll look more innocent. But the fact that you string him along and keep him there for 45 minutes, I really wish what we could have him testify as to what actually was said and how she was stringing him along for so long. So he had other calls to make. So why would you keep those other customers waiting for so long? So I think she was stringing them along. And I think that's what the jury would have picked up on. That's exactly why George asked the question.
Okay. Yeah. And then there was something else in there. I forgot what I was going to, so we're done with this clip. Are there any other things you want to mention about this clip before we go to the next one?
You talking about the access, unfettered access topic, or what?
Anything on what I just
No, no, that's fine.
on this
That's fine.
3-minute clip? Yeah, because that was a long clip. There was a
Yeah.
lot in there. I probably should have paused a couple more times. Okay, let's go to the next point. And
You were asked about Jeffrey Lacasse.
this kind of starts leading into some additional questions about Jeffrey Lacasse. A lot of these things just sort of flow into one another, these topics. So
Right.
here we go.
Right. Hey, can I mention something first, though?
Yeah, yeah.
You
Go
know,
ahead.
this getting into other folks she's dating. I mean, normally that would really have no relevance to a trial, whether
Mhm.
whether you have fidelity to your boyfriend or not, or in a time frame that you're talking about. This is many years beforehand. The
Mhm.
reason why she's getting into this because it makes it look. It helps solidify the deal that Jeff was played this whole time. That he was told that
Okay.
we're serious. Hey, don't get a Jeep, get a car that's more suitable for a family.
Mhm.
Don't be buying a house for yourself. Let's buy a house together, kind of thing. So she was really playing him, and
Mhm.
and like I say, the prosecution theory, which makes sense, is that she was playing him because she wanted him to be the fall guy if he didn't become part of the hit team.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, if he didn't become, which is very interesting, how she incited him to so
Mhm.
much anger toward. Okay, good. Okay, yes, that's really good to understand when we start listening.
Relationship ended. What is OkCupid?
OkCupid is a dating website.
Were you on that dating website?
I was.
Were you on that dating website at the time that you were dating Mr. Lacasse?
No, I wasn't.
And were you speaking? So I guess if you weren't on it, you weren't speaking to multiple men from the website during the time you were dating Mr. Lacasse. And I'll remind you that you provided your phone in this case, and it was cell-brighted, downloaded.
You right there, Dawn.
Right.
I sort of wish Georgia wouldn't have let her be reminded the fact that I can prove you're lying.
Gotcha.
Right. I wish
Let
she
her
would have.
lie.
I wish she would have let her
Yeah.
lie and then sprung. Oh,
Mhm.
by the way, because she wasn't ready for that one. You could
Right.
tell. So.
Yeah, and she got this big reprieve from the objection. Now, is that really argumentative to say that? I've heard that said by lawyers all the time, and I've never heard it objective. I mean, I probably wasn't paying as much attention to, but is that I mean, obviously it was sustained, but really? I thought that was kind of weird. Is that
Well,
argumentative?
no. If you ask a follow up question, it depends how she sounded. If she sounds like she's more inquisitive about it instead of being more direct. And
Hmm.
so keep in mind, she's Georgia's witness, but yet Georgia's actually trying to impeach her.
Yeah.
So she's
she
actually
is.
treating her what you'd call a hostile witness, but she never asked permission from the court to treat as a hostile witness. She
Mhm.
just sort of was trying to get Wendy to admit as much as she could by being more of a sort of open-ended, or this kind of like follow-up question that was objected to. So that she's trying to get her to try to elicit answers that would be favorable to Georgia without being so confrontational. But
Mhm.
I thought it was nonetheless effective, even though she didn't do it the way I would have liked to see it. So if you want to go after this, I can say something else.
Okay. Okay. I was just going to start playing the clip again,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the only thing I was thinking here is um that I feel like because okay, so if Wendy were setting up Jeffrey and had an alternate way of murdering Dan than the hitman way that Charlie had, um I'm just wondering if Georgia is solely trying to set Wendy's up by asking these questions for her future trial, or if how pertinent is this to Charlie's trial as to Jeff's possibly being set up, because Charlie really didn't have any involvement with Jeff, according to Jeff. They only met once, I think. Is that Did I lose you? I can't hear you.
Sorry, if you look at the next clip after this, she actually did change her tune. She initially was denying, and she actually said Jeff had no reason, and she accused him of being insecure or some words like
All
that.
right. It's terrible. It's
Yeah.
terrible.
And
Okay. Well, I'll
so,
keep playing. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. But I just think, yeah. Okay. I'll wait. We'll wait. I'm going to fast forward here through the break. And I just thought this was, instead of cutting it out, it's interesting because of the looks between, this is where Wendy's looking over at the jury, and she got a chance to gather herself to answer this question probably the way she wanted. Charlie and Wendy look like two kids that were just caught finger painting in the dining room. Oh, we lost Carl.
I'm here.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
I
they
gotta
look so
switch
guilty.
cameras.
Oh, that's okay.
That's denied as to improper impeachment is sustained.
All right, here we go.
Disregard the last comment from the prosecutor. Go ahead.
Didn't you just say that you weren't on OkCupid at the time that you were dating Jeffrey Lacasse?
I don't know when we say I officially stopped dating Jeff Lacasse, but there's a chance that, I don't remember in 2014 whether I had gotten the app and started talking to people before we officially broke up.
Okay, so my point is there's a chance that he was right. You were being unfaithful, or at least talking to other people. He had a reason to be jealous.
I think he had some serious jealousy issues that may or may not have been founded.
Yeah, I think
I'm just going to pause here because she didn't say, no, I didn't. She said he may or may, that means he may have been founded.
Yeah.
She said it may or may not been founded, but again,
But-
she didn't need to press her that hard here, right?
But see, she's only saying that because she realizes that
Mhm.
Georgia mentioned that they have her phone record.
Mhm,
So that's why
mhm,
she's couching it both ways. And she's hoping Georgia doesn't keep going down this path.
mhm. Well, you're going to be back on that stand, Wendy. We can't wait.
got from your testimony that you believe he had serious jealousy issues. My question to you is, did he have a reason to be?
No,
So he was wrong.
he was wrong in June when he accused me of being with multiple people that I wasn't with. Yes.
Okay.
Again, he was wrong in June,
Mhm.
but I was cheating all the other months.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, that's so ridiculous. Okay.
Right.
Okay. So that's the end of that clip, essentially, I think. Yeah. Okay. Anything else before we get, because we're going to get into Jeffrey. I think we've got Jeffrey's next. Let's see, where he does say something. Let me check. Oh, no, we still have more.
What was wrong?
More from Wendy, and this is about the grandparents. I
You were
think I
asked
got that
about
out of
Jeffrey
orders.
Lacasse.
So anything else on whether Wendy was a cheater on this? Any more comments before we move on to the?
No,
grandparent?
I think that really, helps set the scene because, like I said earlier, it had to do with framing Jeff, and she
Mhm.
was moving on with her life and preparing ahead, while at the same time she was setting him up to be the fall guy or part of the hit team. So, in any
Yeah.
event, this whole thing about Jeff was totally staged from the get go, and it was so obvious.
Mhm.
And that's why I think I thought Georgia had a lot of tenacity and smarts to say that he was framed.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what the jury would have thought, I'm sure.
Good. Okay. Good. Thank you. Let's go.
What was wrong with Dan's mother trying to make arrangements for the kids in the event of your arrest? Wasn't that a kind thing to do?
I don't think it's kind to put my children in foster care.
Wasn't the foster care intended only to cover the time frame that it would take for her to get on a plane and get here?
She never said that.
You thought she was just going to leave them in foster care?
I didn't know what to think. They have a mother. They don't need to be in foster care.
But they wouldn't have a mother in the event of your arrest, Ms. Adelson. Wasn't that the intention of the email?
I don't know what the intent of the email was. I was not going to be arrested for a crime I didn't commit.
She didn't know that though, did she?
I don't know what she knows or doesn't know. I can't speak
Does-
to that.
Do Dan's parents know whether you committed this crime or not?
I don't know how to answer that question.
How would they? Particularly back at the time that she sent that email. It was fresh at that time, right?
I'm sorry, what was fresh?
All the events that were occurring, the arrests.
That was 2 years after Danny's murder. I don't know what she knew or didn't know. I know that my children don't belong in foster care.
Was it a specific foster care that she was requesting be called in the event that the children had no place to go and were going to be going into the custody of the state?
She did suggest a specific foster care agency,
A Jewish-run foster care agency.
a Jewish foster care.
How many times have the kids visited Dan's parents since this murder?
Many. It'd be hard to count.
Countless times?
Countless times.
How many times have they seen him in the last year?
We had a visit with Danny's dad and the boy's cousin this summer. We've had a lot of Skype visits. They do live in Canada, so it makes it a little bit harder to have in-person visitation. But every time they've asked for it, we've arranged it.
Every time they've asked for a visit, you've arranged it.
Yes, ma'am.
How many times have they seen him in the last 5 years?
Again, we
Countless?
have, as in the last 5 years, that overlaps with the time when they tried to put them in foster care. So since we've reestablished relations, we've seen them about twice a year whenever they come down to Florida.
So in the last 5 years, they've seen him how many times? 2 or 3 times a year?
About that.
Has this been a major issue between you and?
I just want to say I felt like Georgia was helping her too much there. She's offering to see him 2 times a year, so making it sound like it really wasn't that big of that long of a period of time, because my understanding, and I could be wrong on this, you all, maybe you know more, Carl, that it was a 6-year gap where they didn't see their grandchildren. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was. There's been a few visits more often since that 6-year gap happened because of the fact that that's Florida statute for grandparents' rights passed, and so Markels could use that threat of basically civil action that forced their hand, and also right before a trial. It was when that also forced, I think, maybe a visit. But, the visits are really sparse, and they're really short. And you got Adelson's hovering right over them the whole time. So it's not like Phil or Ruth can go pick up the boys and say, "Hey, we'll see you. We'll see you in a couple of days. Go, take them wherever you want here in Florida." No, it's like they're completely like in a cult type setting where they're guarded and watched, and they're basically like prisoners, the boys.
It seems like it. It does seem like it. Okay. Yeah, I didn't think the Grandparent Act would help the Markels, but unless Wendy was, I don't know. But either way, I just thought it was 6 years, and Judy did confirm that. I felt like Georgia could have made that a little more clear, but I guess it didn't matter. I guess we can nitpick all we want right now until the next trial. But okay, let's just finish out the clip and then we'll chat more.
And Dan Markel's parents, this issue of them having access to the kids?
The issue of them trying to put them in foster care is a major
No,
issue,
ma'am, that's
yes.
not my question.
I'm sorry.
Hasn't the issue of them trying to get access to your kids been a major issue, at least for them?
Since they tried to put the children in foster care, yes. Before that, it was not a problem.
Are you familiar with their work across the street at the legislature trying to get bills passed to give grandparents rights to see kids?
I'm familiar with their grandparents' legislation, but it's actually unconstitutional.
Okay.
She's like, okay, what I really love about this whole thing here is she pretends like she doesn't know anything about the law, even though she's an attorney, and then she pulls that out of her hat. It's like, which is it, Wendy? It was just so hurtful. It was heartbreaking for me, and a lot of people in the chat are talking about how Ruth, Dan's mother and father and sister were right there. She could see them as she's saying this, all of it. So it's pretty, like, in other words, okay, so if that wasn't her intention, why didn't you ask her when Ruth sent you the email, instead of going nuclear and denying them access for 6 years? Why didn't you just ask her what her intention was? I mean, what kind of a response was it? Sounds like that was it. There was no discussion. So I'd like to know if there was more discussion between her and Ruth that led to this 6-year gap. But okay, so I had put some notes here. also that Ruth in her book, I believe, or on an interview where I saw her, but I believe from Ruth, that there was a lot of limitation. She was Ruth and Phil were not allowed to see the boys after the memorial for Dan. They barely saw them at the memorial. They, of course, because they were at the memorial and there were a lot of people there. But then when they went to the home afterward for whatever that part of it is, the kids were like running around or whatever. And then she asked Wendy if she could spend some time with the boys. And Wendy said yes. And then when Ruth called Wendy the next day, she said, sorry, we're on our way to Miami or
Right.
whatever.
Right.
I mean, that is so heartbreaking. But anyway, there was that where she didn't even get to see the children and spend time with Dan's sons during that really crucial, heartbreaking time. And then that 6-year gap. And then they actually retracted a bar mitzvah invitation in 2022 that they only sent so that they could say they invited her, basically. And then so that she could go on the stand in 2022 and say, yeah, well, she was just invited to the bar mitzvah. That invitation was retracted from all accounts. So what does that say about, again, to me, I think these are really interesting because this is Charlie's trial, not Wendy's. And we have to always remind ourselves that Wendy's not on trial yet. So what does this mean for Charlie? And then what could it mean for Wendy, these statements and these questions? And why is she asking these questions, do you think?
Well, it goes to show the cruelty of the family. The more the prosecutor can show the hatred that Adelsons have, not just Charlie, but all of the Adelsons, that drives home the point that the murder had to happen because Dan was inconveniencing them in a number of ways. And keep in mind that I guess I won't get into it tonight, but there's a number of things that were coming unraveled and were going to come crashing down on their heads. And they needed a quick fix. And Dan's elimination off the face of this earth solved so many of those problems instantly. And they really thought it would work, and it did for a couple years.
Okay. Yeah, it did. It did for a couple of years. I feel like they have all been in on house arrest in a way that since 2016. So
I mean, they've been free up until a year and a half ago, but they thought they were home free, up until they get arrested, right?
Yeah, probably. Ugh. Okay. Any final thoughts on unfettered? And it is kind of interesting. Unfettered access for her family. Oh, they had unfettered access, but not for his family.
Yeah, I mean, they called Special Agent Sanford to refute that. And
Yes.
I thought it would have been even better to call the Markels. And but I think from the FBI standpoint, they probably had done the research on flights and stuff like that. So I think it was nevertheless a credible source. But the emotion behind the denials, I think I would have wanted to go before a jury. But like I say, this jury picked up on so many other things of the hatred that they had for Dan and the Markels. So it just goes to show that they wanted every form of the Markel from these boys stripped from their lives, and that equates to why Dan was murdered.
Yeah.
It all fits together.
It really does. And there couldn't all be like you said earlier, this can't all be coincidences.
No.
Right.
No.
I think I heard along the grapevine, I can't remember for sure, maybe the chat can help me out, especially Judy in the chat here, that the Markels do not want to have to testify. I think they would if it really got down to it, but I think they were trying so hard just to not be adversarial so they could see the children and that kind of thing. So I think I could be wrong, let me know, and everybody will let you know when you're wrong, right? But I think Ruth would prefer, and her husband, or Phil, ex-husband, would prefer not to testify. Does that kind of make sense, right? But I mean,
yeah, because then they can see the trial. If they can't see the
oh my God, beautiful.
Bengal. See the marbling?
I see the marbling. What a gorgeous cat. I'm so jealous. Oh my
Anyway.
gosh. What's her name?
It's Leo, father
boy.
of little LJ. Anyway,
Aw.
sorry, he just jumped in my lap here. So
That's what Tosh does. She disappears out of nowhere. I love it. Hi, Leo. Okay. It's a beautiful cat. Yes, I'm looking at I digress. I'm looking at long-haired Bengals. Have you seen the long-haired Bengal? Oh, yeah, it's a dream cat. I have like a fake Bengal. I have a spotted tabby. It's not a fake Bengal, but she's very much like a rag doll. But okay, so any final thoughts on that before we go to the next clip?
my
Almost
mind's
done.
raced 100 different points since you last showed it. So
I know, I
I'll
know.
pass.
Okay, no problem. At least four more slides, but they're not all that long.
That was the joke,
That was the joke that he made in poor taste. Yes.
not to kill
Oh,
someone else.
This is my bonus.
No. Well, he never used his name.
Okay.
I mean, well, he never used his name. Talk about getting, like, she's saying she made a joke. It's cheaper than getting a divorce or whatever, TV's than a divorce, or whatever. It's a cheaper present for your divorce, but he didn't use his name. Are you kidding me? She thinks that that's going to matter. That was my final clip. I think I had some extra bonuses here, but I don't want to use up too much more time on this. Oh, here, let's go to, sorry.
How to Train a Dragon 2 to give the kids a special movie night. And I have text
We
messages
have
where
Jeffrey.
I'm discussing having seen the movie by the 18th with friends.
So you were able to refresh your memory.
Yeah, I was able to
by going
refresh
through
my,
those?
yeah.
All right. So do you get the movie or?
Well, it's back in the day, it was Redbox. So I rented a DVD from a Redbox.
He's just so believable. And I'm sorry, I forgot to introduce this. I got that slide out of order. He was saying, I don't remember him being asked in this kind of detail about that television or testifying in this kind of detail in 2022 or 2019. Do you remember that, Carl? Is there more?
Well, I think there's more details in this
Yeah.
case for a number of witnesses, and I thought that was critical to bring out. The more you're
Yeah.
going after the Adelsons, the more it's critical to
Mhm.
bring up the details of their bizarre behavior, because all of it just is just so convincing to any jury that that this was a family hit job.
Yeah, and I found it reassuring to see things escalate in that way. It wouldn't make a lot of sense to have done this for Katie and Siegfried, for the people who actually were hired to do the hit job. But now that we're into the family, I think we're going to see things really ramp up more in terms of the sharp questioning and, as you said, a little bit more aggressiveness from Georgia. Okay, let's go.
It was 2014.
All right, and go over there with the movie and what happens when you arrive.
I walk in the door and Miss Adelson asked me to look at her television because there's something wrong with the television.
And what was wrong with the television?
Well, I turned it on and I was immediately confused because it really shouldn't have been a question. As soon as you turn the TV on, it's been struck by an object and is damaged and basically unusable.
Can you explain what the damage looked like?
Yeah, it looked like somebody stood in front of it, took their fist and hit it like that was my first impression.
So kind of like a shatter mark with spiders.
Yeah, there's like an impact crater, and then there's from that and it's all pixelated and distorted, which makes it very difficult. Or really, no one would watch this TV unless you had to. And I had second thoughts about that. I looked around the room. Maybe the kids broke it, so I looked all around the room, and it didn't seem plausible that the children broke it. They're very small. This object had to be kind of heavy. I'd thrown a ball around with them. I just couldn't see how the kids could have done it.
But you didn't see how it got busted.
I didn't see it. I didn't know for sure. And I didn't know we'd be discussing this in a murder trial. So I didn't investigate further or think about it very much, to be honest with you. I just thought, okay.
Were there other TVs in the house?
There was a TV in the back bedroom, a similar make and model that we had watched television with the kids before on that TV before. So yes.
Is that where you watched the movie that night?
No, I went to go hook up the DVD player in the back room. Miss Adelson insisted that it would not work and actually stopped me from even trying. So thought that was very odd, but I didn't want to argue. And it's her house, her TV, her kids. So I said, okay.
So did you watch the movie on the broken TV?
Yeah, we gave the kids movie night where we watched a movie on a broken television that was distorted enough that you could follow what was happening, but the kids are whining and crying the whole time.
It's so sad.
And I wasn't whining or crying exactly, but I was tempted to because it
Close.
was pretty frustrating. And I just didn't understand, what was going on. And of course, I had related that this TV is broken, it's unwatchable, it's not covered by warranty.
Charlie
I have to
thinks
get a
it's
new
funny.
TV, and I offered to go do that for her anytime she wanted. She's a busy single mom. I'll run by Best Buy, get you a new TV. It was not like a 80-inch TV or something that was really that luxurious. It was a TV like you'd see in a dorm room. So we could have replaced it right away.
All right. Did you end up getting a new TV?
No, she turned me down several times on that offer. And again, it's her house. I tried to respect her boundaries. And I said, oh, okay. But it was inconvenient because after dinner, it's nice to be able to put the kids in front of that TV while you clean up the dishes and stuff. And it sat there being an inconvenience for a while.
All right.
Crazy.
I want to ask you about when is Ms. Adelson's birthday?
April 22nd,
Okay.
Earth Day.
I've got this out of order. Let's skip over that for now.
Okay, I thought that was funny where he popped in Earth Day. In other words, that's how I remember. Okay, so there we go. Where do I begin? I mean, the amount of details she's asking about this TV again doesn't have as much pertinent relevance to Charlie's trial, right? But to future trials, perhaps Wendy, right? Oops, I think you're on mute. Oops.
They're presenting evidence against other family members who are co-conspirators. So what that does help prosecute and convict Charlie. So
Okay.
this is also laying the framework for the same kind of questioning of Jeff for Wendy's trial. So it's all the buildup of getting more Adelson. So this right here alone shows how much she was involved. And there's only one way you'd make your kids go through that cracked screen is because you wanted this to be so implanted in his mind,
Right.
that this TV was broken for a number of weeks and we had to get it fixed. So because that was the alibi. The alibi was she had to be home from 8 to noon for the hit. So how could she be involved in something where she has to be home from 8 to 12 and the hit's happening at 11? So
Right. Thank you. Thank you for just clarifying. I feel so much better now that we've gone through these because I'm really looking forward to a fuller justice for the Markel family. And I mean, when I was watching this trial too, I was chatting and other things. So it's kind of helpful to go through these clips. So I think let's see if there's one more. I think that's the end of yep. So that is the end. So we have just a couple, if you don't mind staying around for another 5 or so minutes, we have some questions. I think Carla picked out some questions for you from the chatters, and I had put a post up during the week, so I had about 50 comments there. Would you be able to stay for a couple minutes to do that, to answer some questions?
Yeah.
Okay, Carla. Hi, Carla. Oops, you're muted. There you
I
go.
know, on purpose. Hi, guys.
Nice to see
Hello.
you.
Hi, Carl. Hi, Dawn. So there are a bunch of questions.
Okay.
So we're not going to go through all of them, obviously, but I'm going to go ahead and get started with one that is really interesting.
Okay.
So scroll to the top, and thank you to everyone who submitted them ahead of time. Okay, so Carl, how big of a deal do you think it is that Dan, a well-connected law professor, decided to hire a criminal defense attorney, not another family law attorney, coinciding with pleadings to enforce the MSA and for sanctions regarding financial matters known to be found in an account tied to Wendy's family?
I couldn't quite get all that, but the gist of it basically is why would he go to a criminal defense lawyer? And
From Miami.
I'm talking, you're talking about.
No,
Dan?
so he hired a criminal defense attorney. I forget his name, but remember he mentioned that he practiced criminal law before he decided to make the jump to
The one who what testified, right? The
Right.
attorney, and
Yeah.
I forgot. We were just
Webster.
talking about
Webster.
Yes, we were
Yes.
just talking about this. Yes. Why would he
So-
go to Webster instead of
another family law attorney.
a family law attorney? Okay.
Well, I think he had trouble finding somebody that would take it. I think it was so contentious and knockdown dragouts. And I think that, the lawyers are getting sucked in, and Wendy's lawyer had to recuse herself at least one time. And so that criminal defense lawyer was probably the last stopgap measure that he had to go find somebody. And criminal defense lawyers don't really want to get involved in family law matters, but when it's such a knockdown drag out like that, and you got a lot of emotions going on in the courtroom, criminal attorneys are good at handling those kind of witnesses, because just like in a murder case, you got emotions running really high, and it's very suspenseful. And so the fact that a criminal defense attorney was willing to take it, I thought spoke well of the fact that Dan really must have had a strong case against her.
Right. And he did testify to why, in fact, he wasn't even going to take it. And do you remember that? We'll have to, maybe I'll replay his testimony for one of these times, because it was so good. He's been on some other shows too. And he's just, I love him. I just think he's great. He's got a big heart. He really feels terrible about what happened. Remember, he said he was supposed to talk to Dan that day or something like that. It's just heart-wrenching.
Yeah, real good guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so another question, could Dan's data even be entered into evidence, or is this considered a hearsay problem since Wendy would not be able to cross-examine her accuser?
Dan's data?
Yeah, so from his phone, his phone, it could show messages, text messages, emails, etc. Could that be entered as evidence against Wendy when she's arrested? Or would that provide a problem because she's not able to cross-examine him?
Well, I think there's hearsay sections where that could come in, depending on who he's sending it to. If he's sending it to Wendy, I think that would come in. And so it shows if there's something relevant about it. If it's to show how they're fighting, I think they got all that in the 800 some pages of the court filings. So it all depends how relevant the information is. But yeah, there's definitely a lot of information about this case we have not even seen that they have against Wendy. So anybody that says we don't have enough evidence against Wendy should clarify it and say, I haven't looked at enough of the evidence to make it an accurate determination. And I know that the government has even more that I've not seen, even if I try to see everything that's out there on the web. So it's really just more of a shut mind type of a mentality than an open mind.
Right. Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did the detective know how to locate Wendy at the restaurant when she was picked up and taken to the police station? Did they ever address that?
I think Judy from AA Legal Focus said that they had searched her cell phone. I don't know how they'd search somebody's cell phone that quick, though. You'd probably need a search warrant. So I don't know if that's accurate or not. But, they could have called the school where she worked and said, anybody know where she hangs out this time of day? And they could have said, yeah, she's a Friday regular at Mosaics, or whatever that name is. So it could have been that simple as well.
Okay. How did Wendy get away with asking the detective if she was a suspect in the police car before knowing what happened in the interview the day Dan was murdered?
We don't know that happened. How do we know that happened?
Well, she said in the interview she was wondering
in the
on
car.
way down. Yeah, in the police
Yeah.
car.
Right,
On the way
but she said it in the interview.
Yeah, she said, I was wondering on the way down here if I was a suspect.
I was
So-
wondering on the way down here.
Yeah,
but
but
she
she-
didn't say she
Well,
asked.
you put two and two together because they're there because of Dan being gunned down in his garage. So I mean that could be incriminating, but it also could not be, because you're just I made the point that no way would an attorney get into a squad car and not know what the reason is. Okay.
Right,
There's
right.
most intelligent
makes
people
sense.
would not do
No,
that. Okay?
I wouldn't.
But
Yeah.
especially not an attorney, even if you're
Right.
not a criminal law attorney, um,
Mhm.
and then you just saw the squad cars in front of Dan's house. There's no way you'd be demanding answers right then and there. And that never happened. That also shows constitutional guilt. And this is all part of the plan. Go talk to the police. Don't invoke the fifth, and just give this song and dance and sob story, and just try to make it look like you're just a grieving ex-spouse just trying to be a single mom and do the right thing. And anyway, it was just so much a bad staged acting job.
Mm.
A question from Wesley. What type of evidence, if any, can Donna's defense team come up with? They couldn't possibly go with the extortion number. Would it be in her best interest to just plead guilty without going to trial, given the overwhelming amount of evidence against her?
Well, I think first of all, before you talk about how she's going to plead and whatnot, I think you got to keep your client under control, and her acting out of control and putting all these antics on in jail and crying about the fact that she's on a mattress naked and doesn't have any forks or utensils to eat with. And so, I mean, she's just trying to put the jailhouse staff through the ringer and trying to deal with her in the hopes that the judge will let her go out on home release. And I think it's all created by the Adelsons. And if you notice in the defense motion, she's saying that my client is asking for this. And that's really, as an attorney, a trial attorney, I can tell you when the attorney puts on paper or an argument that the client's asking for it, it's basically letting the judge know that I wouldn't be so ridiculous to ask for such a thing, but my client's demanding that I ask for it. That's always a dead giveaway.
That's interesting. Just to follow up on that question, I like that question because I was thinking maybe she would plead guilty, not for that reason, but just to take all the rest of the secrets to the grave, because if more evidence is allowed to come out.
Well, first of all, she's not going to admit to something that's basically going to put her behind bars for life. I mean, she could go ahead and plead guilty and have pre-sentence investigation and not agree to flip on anybody, just go ahead and go to prison and not be in the jail. But she's just not going to do that. I think she's just looking to try to figure out a way to avoid going to trial. And I think she's just going to create so much of a ruckus and basically have mental illness be part of a reason why she has to get out. And so I don't think she really has the whole end game really figured out at this point. I think she's more in a survival mode of how to just basically deflect and point the finger at other people, because she's not going to accept any responsibility.
Yeah, makes sense.
So
that emergency motion was really laughable.
Speaking of, here's another question from someone in the chat. What is a circumstance that would allow Donna house arrest? We know the chance is remote, but what would allow it?
There isn't anything that would allow it, because you're not allowed that on a first-degree murder case, from what I understand, in Florida. So unless she has some kind of, has to go to emergency room, and 911's called, and she's going to be in the ER for a while, and then ICU or something. I mean, short of that, she's not going to get out. And I think they're allowed to do an Arthur hearing to ask for it, but the fact that she's already tried to flee the country, there's no judge that's going to let her out to go on house arrest for murder one. That just doesn't happen. You could bond out sometimes on in some states, I'm sure, for murder one, but the bond would be so high, it'd be millions of dollars. And they also look at how much money the family has access to. But the fact that Charlie's talked about fleeing the country, Charlie's talked about killing the undercover cop, Donna and Harvey tried to flee the country. And so, yeah, there's just, and also talked about suicide. They're not going to let them out. They're not going to let her out. So.
Other questions are just repeated.
Okay.
There's
the
one.
same.
Yeah, hold on. There's one. It says, can start and end dates. I mean, I guess this is more of a tech question, but in general, if we were to guess, Can start and end dates on WhatsApp be subpoenaed even if the content cannot? Do
Oh.
either of you know that?
It all depends, I think, on whether the people save the item on their phone or not. I know they had some of that in the Murdo case, and we don't know if they've, it doesn't look like they've been able to recover any of that, or if they even tried to ask for that in this case here. But I think there are ways to get stuff that, if you go through the right procedures, then you can get that. So everything goes through different types of, even if it's encrypted, it goes through different types of servers and stuff like that. So there's ways to eventually get stuff like that if you go through the right sources. And some of them could even be through like 3-letter federal agencies.
Those are great questions. Thank you so much for organizing that, Carla's help save the day, because I had a busy day. And I love that you were able to represent the chat a little bit in the audience from the week. And thank you all for submitting your questions to Carl, because we want to become smarter people when it comes to this stuff. And I love how the chat makes us smarter. And you've been a great guest. I did skip the intro because I wanted to make sure that we stuck to our 1 hour time. We got about 5 minutes left. So here's a question. So final question goes to Hey Mona. How's that sound? Because she's great. Does the same assessment in Miami have anything to do with Leon County's assessment? Assessment? What do we mean by assessment?
I think she means the psych eval.
Oh, okay. And gosh, I don't know that Carl, would you know that?
I haven't seen those records, but I mean, I'm sure they have similar conclusions, that she's basically trying to be a malingerer here and just act like she's going crazy. I think there's some truth to that. I think she's going absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, this they're going to put her in the cell partially because she's been talking about probably killing herself, right? And then she'll deny it and whatnot. So it's just going to be nonstop chaos. I think that she's going to be trying to give the jailers and the psych evaluation folks there. So, and maybe the judge will let her have their own independent, psychologist to evaluate her that can see through all this. I mean, I guess you can find some psychologists that would fall for this or whatever if you pay the right amount of money. But
right.
The judge is ultimately the one that's going to decide. It's not going to be up to her private psychiatrist that decides where she goes between now and her trial date.
Yeah.
Do you think something that just came to mind for me? So I don't know if you followed the Lori Vallow Daybell case, Carl, but she was, been convicted of just heinous crimes. She tried to somewhat say that there were, some mental health issues going on with her. Idaho doesn't have that insanity plea. I don't know if Florida does, but if they do, is that an option? They don't. Okay, well then I guess that wouldn't be an option for Donna either.
What I know, I mean, Carl's the attorney here, but what I understand is Florida's similar to where Lori Vallow was charged. So Lori Vallow unquestionably has mental health problem, illness. And so in fact, there were some delays for her to go to trial because they had to send her to the hospital, that kind of thing. Here, let me tell you this. What I do know is it's similar also to Wisconsin. I'm from Wisconsin, so I'm a little bit more familiar with this one. So I know you recently watched a case and it was confusing to a lot of people. So what happens in Wisconsin, and it might be like Florida, I'm not sure, is they do a guilt phase trial, and then they do a mental, whether they were insane during the act trial. So it's like 2 trials. Have you heard of that, Carl? That kind of thing?
Two trials.
Yep. So they do a trial for guilt. So if they're found not guilty, it's done. But if they're found guilty, then they do another trial where they argue whether or not they were insane at the time of the act.
I've not heard of that.
Yeah, that's Wisconsin. We just had that with Taylor's business. Taylor's business.
Well,
Terrible crime.
yeah, you got to keep in mind there's competency to stand trial, and so whether you can effectively assist your defense counsel to prepare your defense is one issue, and the other issue is where you considered insane at the time you committed the crime, but you have to admit that you committed the crime. So it's not like
Right.
you can throw all these defenses up there, including insanity, and hope the best one wins.
Yeah. Yeah. I do know that other attorneys have said that Florida does not have and I believe it was Tragos, that Florida doesn't have an insanity plea. So I just was thinking it's more like Idaho and Wisconsin. But every state's different. So I don't, you guys both don't think she's well enough to go to trial. Like she's not going to make it to trial, right? Carla, your opinion is that she's just too frail, or you don't think she's going to make it? I think she's feisty.
I do too. There's no denying that. She just looks unwell to me. You know, she looks unwell, and I mean, look, she's unraveling as we speak, and she hasn't even been there for a month yet, so she's unraveling.
Okay. Yeah. And Carl, do you think her health is going to sustain her the next couple of years?
No, I think the mental is going to also unite with the physical, and that's going to manifest itself in different ways. I think she's not going to be eating the right kind of foods, and probably intentionally to try to make herself sick and to make herself basically die before she goes to trial. That's why I think that's why I think in the back of her mind she's trying to, if she cannot get out of there and go to house arrest, she's going to try to do something to just basically to offset having to go to trial.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Because ultimately that's the best form of justice against her, is her having to face a jury and the jury saying guilty. And just like they did for Charlie, all their whole house of charades and lies and deceptions and hate that they've been able to manipulate others for. The manipulation ended when Charlie got convicted, and she's not going to let that jury do the same thing to her, what they did to Charlie. That's my belief.
Do you think she'll get a different attorney than this one that she has right now?
Well, I think with all the antics that she has, I think the Florida attorney is going to probably say, we got to get a local person, because I don't want to have to be constantly driving up there or listening to her over the phone and all that kind of stuff, even if you're getting paid a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
To do the babysitting and all that. I mean, how much money are you willing to take just to deal with all that? And so yeah, I would be surprised if we don't have local counsel. But then again, the flip side of it is, I mean, they're not really smart about anything they're doing about how they've committed the murder or how they've acted afterwards, and including how they what they're telling their lawyers to take to trial and argue on their behalf. So
right,
it's really, and that's why I've been saying all along, charge all the Adelsons, because they're not going to have good attorneys that are able to put on a good defense.
I agree. Do you think that Rashbaum was basically told, okay, this alibi, this puzzle pieces alibi thingy, or what, that this whole thing was just a conspiracy, another level? Do you think he was just given that by Charlie and the Adelsons and basically said, this is what you're going to do for us? In other words, he didn't really have a choice in.
Well, if he's the one that suggested it to him, that and basically told him what to say and make it all up, that's completely unethical. So whether it was from Rashbaum or that the army of jury consultants from New York, I just don't see that happening. I think Charlie had this scheme figured out, and these attorneys, I don't think they're going to risk their standing with their state bars just to help out an Adelson. So I'm sure it was Charlie telling them what to do. The maestro had the perfect answer for everything. He had all that time to study the evidence and come up with the defense. And, they looked at I would say his attorneys looked at the evidence and realized he's got no credible defense. So, I mean, if that's what you're convinced of will get you an acquittal, then so be it. And who knows if they had a frank conversation with him and said, look, this is so far out in left field. You're basically you're guaranteeing your conviction by presenting this stupid defense.
Yeah, well, yeah, so it would be unethical if he knew it wasn't true, right? Or is that, well, how would it be unethical?
No, it's not. That's not the standard.
Okay, what is it?
So the difference is is if whether your client's telling you they're going to lie in their defense. Okay, so if my client says, "Hey, I'm going to get up there and lie and make this stuff up about a double extortion racket and stuff like that," then you would have to basically withdraw, not question them, either withdraw fully from the case or basically let them get up there and not even ask them any questions, and basically you shun the client during their trial, and it'd be so obvious to the jury at that point. So most lawyers are just going to withdraw completely, and so the but the thing is, just what we think the client's lying, that doesn't mean you can't present their defense. So
Right.
it's only if they're telling you they want to lie and they want you
They're
to lie.
telling you they want to lie.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, they could tell you, "Hey, I want you to lie, make up this defense," and then you can say, "Okay, well, you're not going to get on the stand if you still want me to be on your case." So just argue this, that, and the other. So strategies and tactics. That's a call for the lawyer, not the client. But some clients,
Right.
that they want to strong arm their lawyer and feed them these kind of crazy stories to present to the jury, and and juries, or I should say the attorneys, it's all their calling whether they want to look like a fool like Rashbaum did.
Yeah, it was wild that he presented that with a straight face. It was really,
Well, it took him almost 45 minutes to actually get to it in his opening.
I know. It was really, yeah, it was,
Like,
maybe
all right,
you
what
could
is
get
it
out of
now?
it.
What are you going to tell us now? It's like we were all on the edge of our seats for that long before he actually said what it was. It's almost like he was building up the courage to say something that ridiculous and not just laugh about it himself as he's saying it.
Yeah. People are asking about John Lauro. Is he a defense? Yeah, he is a defense attorney. Is he white collar crime more like Rashbaum? Do we know? We don't know.
Wait, who are you asking about?
John Lauro, Wendy's.
Yeah, I don't think he's a violent crime type of guy. I think he's mostly
Right.
white collar people with got a lot of money. Normally, people with a lot of money are not the ones committing murder, but nowadays it seems like that's not the case so much.
Yeah, it seems like that's their go-to, because this Descalzo or whatever her name is, she's not a experienced defense attorney either. So
I mean, I think he
okay.
does some type of criminal defense. It's more like a Medicare fraud or something like that. Or it's more of a paper drill and not violent type of crime. And so it's a whole different ball of wax. That's I would equate that to more like a lot of civil type work. Even though it would be a criminal case, but there's so much a paper case and it's very boring. Nothing really that grabs the attention of a jury like a murder case.
Okay.
Do you think, and I know we've gone way over, but
We're
all of these
7 minutes.
questions just come to mind. So apologies, Carl. Do you think, so it was very odd to hear Rashbaum both defend and not defend essentially all of the Adelsons. Is that, and even at the status conference hearing right before, where he sounded like a toddler throwing a tantrum when they found out that Harvey and Donna would have to give a statement, is that typical in terms of, because he's trying to provide a blanket statement that they could use in the future, or where did that come from? Why take the approach?
Well, he has to you try to offset what Georgia was crushing him with, which was, what all the Adelsons were doing. So they brought up what Wendy was doing. She argued that Jeff was framed. So there was some, he would have to make some explanations of Wendy, because they're all so joined at the hip. It was so obvious. So that's why I think it was, something that a normal attorney would do. It's like, if the evidence is looking like they're all so much in cahoots, then you try to I think you would try to say that, no, it's not, none of them are in cahoots. None of them are really a part of this. So, because really, if you have everybody involved in the family, but not Charlie, I mean, look how easy that is to connect the dots. If you look at Rashbaum's slide, Who was the one in the middle that had the missing puzzle piece? It was Charlie. So you put Charlie in the middle of the
It
puzzle.
was so
He connects all the pieces. So that's what I argued for Georgia. I would thank Rashbaum for a slide that helps prove it.
right. That was such a faux pas. I mean, come on. Who does their graphics? They should have like said, don't you see what this is saying? Yeah, that was quite the image. Quite the image. All right, Carl. Well, hey, everyone here, we're so glad you're here. Carl has more trials that he's interested in cases. Carla I know. I do. I'm going to be talking some of them. I would be talking about some of them if Donna wouldn't have been arrested. But a lot of us are on the Adelson overload, which is mentioned in the chat. So, what other cases, chat? If you are looking at any other cases that you are interested in watching, or trials that you're interested in watching for 2024, let us know. I personally, I'll watch what's going on with Lori Vallow Bell in Arizona now that she's been extradited, and see that one through. And then there's one here in our area. Carla and I live near each other, and so there's one in the San Diego area that is supposed to be coming up in January. And that's the murder of Maya Millette by her husband, Larry Millette. That's the trial, California versus Larry Millette. Millette, some say. They're a Filipino-American family. Her body's not yet been found. It's possibly very close to where we live, somewhere here. And, but they're still going to go for, I watched all the pretrial hearings, all of that. It was very lengthy, very interesting. And I'd actually like to see if I could go to one of those, day or a couple days of that trial since it's local. Let's see what else is coming up. We have the OnlyFans, and that's in Florida. So that'll be a wide open, streamed trial. The OnlyFans. Let's see. I have
There's
whole list.
Corey Richens.
Oh yes, Corey Richens. They don't even have a trial date though yet, do they? I don't think. That's not gotten to that point.
So,
yep.
no, because that's when she was found to have written the walk the dog letter.
Right. Yes. Yeah, she's a mess. And the Corey Richens, there's so many similarities between, and then the one that everyone's comparing to Wendy Adelson and the divorce, that Jose Baez is representing the wife. Yes. Right again. And I really love watching a Jose Baez trial. There's many. I usually have a list underneath the description. I didn't put the list up tonight, but okay. So, Crystal Rogers. Yes. Thank you for reminding. Yeah. Third arrest in Crystal Rogers today. Courtney Clenny. That's open, OnlyFans. Let me go up. Let me just make sure I don't miss anybody. If I miss you, just comment it again. Sarah Boone. Sarah Boone should be interesting. Should that have suitcase? I didn't know if I could follow Sarah Boone because of the crime, because it's very hard. So I'll be watching some of that. Shanna Gardner for sure. And then Chad Daybell, duh. Yes, Chad. I should be putting these up. Shanna Gardner. Rex Heuermann. Do you think there'll be a trial? Ugh, that guy's creepy. Oof. I don't know. That one's going to be wild. OnlyFans was supposed to start in December. I'm not sure if they changed it. And that's Florida, so it should be streamed. Anyone else?
And obviously, Brian Coburner.
Yeah, that one is taking forever. That doesn't have a date yet either.
It's been pushed
Crystal
back.
Rogers. Karen Reed. Yes. Karen Reed is another one that's very interesting. And Crystal Rogers. I did a blurb on Crystal Rogers. I don't think I did a designated show on her yet, but I will. I'm really interested in that one because there are like 5 different murders unsolved in this town in, believe is that Kentucky? It's where they have the bourbon.
Bardstown.
There you go. Bardstown, Kentucky. My brain's a little dull these days, you guys. I'm sorry. My memory. Yeah. So any of those sound interesting? Any more trials that you're watching, Carla? Are you watching some trials? I know you've got some that you're gonna surprise us with, but are you familiar with all of these, or some of these you haven't heard of yet?
I'm sorry, were you talking to me?
Yeah, are some of
Yeah, I
these?
mean, I guess Daybell, that rings a bell. I think that's the one having to do with she killed her kids or something like that. And I
Yeah,
just haven't looked at that trial. So there's just so many of these going on right now. It's hard to keep
yes.
tabs on all of them, And but yeah, I'm looking at doing a couple more cases and with John's help, and then also John's going to be there at the court proceedings Monday and
Oh,
Tuesday, and
great!
so we're going to be doing live streaming there for
Yay!
both the fiasco with Donna as well as the sentencing for Charlie.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are going to. I'm going to start doing a couple other cases. I think just 2 more cases
Mhm.
that I find that pique my interest, and I think that that there's basically been I guess not enough public attention on that would maybe help shed light to the public and encourage the prosecutions to go after them and if
Mhm.
they're not and whatnot. So I think it's going to be I think it'll be interesting to see this Shanna Gardner one. I don't think I'm tracking that one. I've heard the
Okay.
name before, but it doesn't ring a bell on which one that is. That the one? I think that's the one that had tried to kill her husband, right? Yeah, that's the one that tried to kill
Yes,
her husband
that's
in the
the one that
church.
Jose Baez is on, the one that Don just mentioned, Brightigan, Jared Brightigan.
Oh, Brightigan. Okay. She's
That's
the
her. Yeah,
woman
her.
involved in that.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
I'm familiar with that one. Yeah.
Yeah. And I like that that's your guidepost. Basically, you're gonna cover trials where you feel like they need more attention, that justice is not being served because they need a little bit more pressure and a little bit more publicity in social
Yeah.
media.
Well, the
Yeah.
Brightigan one that might be a good one just because of the fact that you got this Baez guy that people think he's going to be able to get guilty people acquitted. So I've not seen him in trial before, so I'd be curious to see what his tactics are and
Yeah.
comment
I
on that.
yeah. I watched an entire trial that he did, and like nobody knew what I was talking about. It was a doctor, I want to
Mm-hmm.
say Ohio, and this
Mm-hmm.
doctor was brought up on murder for like 19 patients, and his license stripped, all this, and he was found not guilty, and he was not guilty. I mean, anyway, it was just
Well,
horrible. I wonder about that doctor all the time. Like, where is he now?
well,
And
then
then there's Shanquilla. Yes.
no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, yeah.
No,
Go
there's the
ahead.
other one about somebody that's falsely accused. Is that the Karen Reed one up in the Northeast?
I think Karen Reed is the one who
Who's the one that's
no.
accused of killing her cop husband?
That's her.
And the town is like in
Mhm.
revolt.
That's her. That's Karen Reed.
Yeah. Okay.
Is
Yeah.
it?
Mm-hmm. Karen Reed in Massachusetts.
Okay. Who's the one that tried to start this
Boston.
ballet school? Was that Karen Reed?
That's Florida. So that's Ashley Benham.
Ashley. That's
Benfield?
Ashley.
Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. Oh my
God,
gosh.
those
Too many
names.
in my mind. That's why I have to make a list. But I do
Yeah,
like
that's
that guy.
in Florida.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was Florida. Oh, Karen Reed is the one who had the Boston, yes, in Boston, in Canton.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm very familiar with that one's interesting too, but that's getting a lot of publicity for sure.
Did Baez defend Harvey Weinstein? I don't remember that.
Was
No,
bias
I don't
was bias
remember that being the case.
no,
no.
no. He had another team, powerful team, both in LA and New York.
Mhm. Oh, okay, Cliff. Yeah, I just was trying to click on somebody else. Oh, Christy Ferris said she just watched Black Swan. It's hard to grab these comments because it moves so quickly. Cliff says, love to see someone revisit the Marty Tancliffe case. Marty Tancliffe. Tell us, Cliff, what's that's about? Oh, and he's saying cases with male victims don't get as much publicity. That's interesting. Oh, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Crystal Rogers' case hasn't gotten as much publicity as it should, though. You know, so and with her, what's interesting is that her father, who supposedly was getting close to the truth, was
Right.
murdered a year later. So
Yes, and it was Dr. William Usel. I just was brokenhearted for him. I mean, it was so interesting. That was a fascinating trial, and it's still available on if you need something else to watch during the holidays, you can watch his. It's very sad because he was working in the ICU and critical care, and so his job was to. It's for a lot of people, it was their end of life. So, yeah, Dr. Hoover, the neurosurgeon. What's this one? Oh, I think I just heard about that one today, actually. Yeah. All right. Well, we don't want to keep Carl forever, and I will do a vote. I won't do it tonight because, but I will set up a vote next time I'm on, or maybe on my community tab. I might set a vote there. So for sure. Oh, and Cliff is just clarifying here that Marty was accused of killing his parents, spent 17 years in jail, and it was overturned. So is it going to have a why was it overturned? So what would we be watching? That's an interesting thing, though. I listened to the podcast. Where's my brain about people who are jailed or imprisoned for a long time and then found, the Innocence Project, of those ones, because I'm really not happy to hear how a lot of people are accused and getting not a fair trial. So in any case, okay, chatties. Keep on chatting. We're going to say goodnight. Any final thoughts, Carla, before we go?
I appreciate you coming on. You know, we love to hear from you. So thank you for taking the time to come on.
And Carl, anything you want to say to the folks before we sign off?
Hopefully I'll see you guys on the exciting days we'll be having on Monday and Tuesday. So that's going to be quite the. I should say that Charlie says there's really going to not be any surprises there because he's going to get the automatic life without parole. But the real exciting one is going to be seeing what goes on with Donna. So, and whether they bring her to trial or whether she's going to be there by video. And so it remains to be seen. And it's too hard to predict exactly what's going to happen because that's really has to do with local and what the judge's preferences for that day.
Yeah.
But yeah, Monday's going to be really exciting to see how that shakes out.
So originally, Monday is, what's the date Monday? So today's 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th. So the 12th is when Charlie was at least a status hearing, but probably sentencing, right? And then they moved, and then it was supposed to be Donna's arraignment. So it was supposed to be like 8:30 and then 10:30, and then they changed Donna's to Monday because of this emergency motion. So maybe her arraignment will be Monday, right? And then Charlie Tuesday. Is that how it's going to work?
Well, the arraignment can be in writing. So, maybe they'll submit it in writing and not have it actually do it in the courtroom. And so it remains to be seen. But they will have, it looks like they will have at least an initial part of the hearing on the emergency motion.
Okay. All right. Well, then and I'm thinking they're going to bring her in there. Let's see what she's got up to. I just don't understand how the attorney could have written all that when she hasn't even spoken to, she's saying that she has had no contact with her client. So how did she put that motion together? And then some people are saying, well, she was able to speak to Harvey for 5 minutes. So then maybe Harvey was the one complaining. But the whole thing just did not come off very, like I could have written that. It just sounded really, really Karen-ish.
It's full of whining. It was full of whining. So anyway.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, thanks again for being here, and we'll see you Monday.
Thanks, Dawn and Carla.
Bye-bye. Thank you. You're welcome.
Good night.